Lynn Davis. I'm an associate professor here at Paso Community College, and today we are at 11 a.m. this morning. We are meeting and being introduced to our state representatives from District 75 who are running for that position. Right now we have two candidates here that are going to be answering our questions. We have two panelists that will ask questions. Our panelists will each get 2 minutes to respond to the question, and if there needs to be follow-up, we'll add that as well. And then after the questions by our panelists are complete, you guys get your questions ready, because you will be asked to step up to a microphone that will be running around the room, and you'll be able to ask your questions of our state representatives. Now, these are very important to remember that they represent El Paso at the state of Texas, so your questions are very, very important at this point, okay? All right, and right now, I'd like to introduce both Hector Enriquez and Mary Gonzalez and welcome them to the stage. And
thank you.
Thank you very much for being here with us. El Paso Community College has a long history of doing these debate forums, and so we appreciate you being here. Right now we'll begin with our questions from our panelists, and whichever one of you are going to begin, please do.
Good morning. All right, first question. Out of curiosity, point of order, were you going to have introductions first?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. All right, yeah, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Mr. Enriquez and Ms. Gonzalez are going to each get 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and Mr. Enriquez in this one will begin with you. And there's a very specific question that we would like answered, and that is, why are you running for this particular office, okay, at this time of your career? And actually, I'm beginning in alphabetical order, so if that's okay with you, Mr. Enriquez. Thank you.
Happy, okay. I was raised for ladies go first, so.
Yes, thank you. I remember your dad.
Thank you.
Very well done.
My name is Hector Enriquez. I'm a candidate for State Representative, House District 75. I've lived in El Paso my entire life, and I'm a graduate of the University of Texas at El Paso. My wife and I have 4 children. One is a university graduate, serving in the United States Coast Guard. I've got 2 more university students, and our youngest is a junior in high school. I'm proud to let you know that my son Troy got his start here at EPCC, and we're very grateful for the portion of his education that he got here at EPCC. Currently, my daughter Carly receives dual credit through the Mission Valley campus, as she's a student, a junior in high school at America's High School. So we are very much a part of and benefactors of the great education that you guys receive here at EPCC, as well as a family. Over the last 25 years, I've established a continuous and most importantly, honest commitment to this city of ours. From 1992 to 1998, I served on the Socorro Independent School District Board of Trustees. In 1997, as their president, I led the way to lower property taxes for homeowners, probably your parents or your grandparents. I think that when you have a representative in the school board or as a state representative, you need to assess the needs of the community. And as such, you must be responsive to the community. I think that by lowering property taxes in 1997, I did that. My service to this community in a business and civic and elected capacity has afforded me, over the last 25 years, the real world experience needed to get things done in Austin for the benefit of El Paso and House District 75.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gonzalez.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be at El Paso Community College. I used to be a professor and an assistant dean at Southwestern University, so it's great to be back in an institution of higher learning because this is my home. And it's really important that EPCC hosts an event like this. 54% of college students right now in the state of Texas are in a community college, but yet community colleges are facing cuts all over the state. And so it's the same reason why I left the classroom to run for office, and probably the same reason why an event like this is critical and important, because community colleges are the ones that are facing the budget cuts at the state legislature. So to answer your question as why am I running for this particular seat, I was fortunate, I'm a proud graduate of Clint High School. I went and got my degrees at UT Austin in History and Mexican American Studies, my master's from St. Edward's, and finishing my PhD in Education from UT Austin. Well, I grew up on a farm. So when you grow up on a farm, you're a hard worker. And I went to school full-time, but I also worked full-time. And I worked at the Capitol for 3 legislative sessions, was assistant director at the National Hispanic Institute, and then went on to be an assistant dean and professor at Southwestern University. The combined experiences as an educator, as someone who's worked in policy, and someone who has a strong background in education, I want to give that back to my community. I love my home, and I want to be able to make sure it has a strong legislator. There's about 6,000 bills that get sponsored in the Texas House. Only 20% of them get through. It's really important that we have someone who knows how to get things done at the Texas Capitol. And my experience working there, both inside and outside the Capitol, trying to get bills either passed or killed, will help our community to make sure that we have someone who can start day one, doesn't have to figure out where the committee's rooms are or how to build coalitions with other state representatives. I'm kind of a policy buff, and I want to be able to use that to support my community and my home.
Thank you, Madam. Okay, now we begin with our questioning. Our panelists, Mr. Ramirez will ask the first question for Mr. Gonzalez, please.
Good morning. How do you propose to compensate lost financial aid for the 60+% of El Paso students that are now struggling to provide for lost funding for school due to budget cuts?
Yes.
I think that the cuts in education is probably the reason that I decided to run for office. Like I said, I'm an educator, and so I got to see firsthand how cutting financial aid to my students really impacted their ability to stay in school. And right now, we just really need to make sure students are staying in school. So one of the key ways is, last session, the Republicans went in and said, we're not going to raise revenue. We're just going to work with this budget. But with a state as big as Texas, that is growing as fast as Texas, we can't have the attitude that we're just going to not raise any money. I mean, any good business sense tells you we need to raise money if our state is growing. So the first thing I would do is really try to find key ways to address raising revenue for the state, as well as using the rainy day fund. I think a lot of times we don't know that there's a rainy day fund that's called the Economic Stabilization Fund that's really there for when our economy is having a hard time to tap into to help our families, to help our communities. And so to tap into that and make sure, if we made a decision today, we could really not cut education anymore. But we would have to make a decision to use the resources that we have and to really think of ways to fund education.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Enriquez.
I want to let you know that it's really tragic that there is such a misguided approach in our leadership today. I resent the fact that Governor Perry took our rainy day fund all over the country trying to become president, when in reality, cutting almost $2 billion to higher education. I'll share with you that the teacher loan repayment program is gone, that the developmental educational dollars are gone. I'll share with you that not too far from here, and I guess you guys ought to be real grateful, Odessa College was actually closed. One of 4 community colleges that got closed. I read specifically of one college that had been around for 90 years serving a community, and it was closed. So I'm ever so grateful, perhaps through the accomplishment that you all have had here at Community College, that you all continue to be funded. But look at this out of the New York Times. Where the jobs are, the training may not be. It's supply and demand, folks. So where the jobs are, and there's a need for those jobs, whether it's nursing, healthcare, computer technologies. This is an actual article. I'll ask you all to go to the table and flip through it. That says that they're eliminating the training for those kinds of things. What kind of hope does that give you guys? So I think that's tragic. How about this? Education gap grows between rich and poor students. I got news for you. We've got a fair number of poor students here in our community. I grew up in a middle-class family, but we were not wealthy by any means. And to me, usually education was the equalizer. If all of a sudden they cut it to where tuition assistance is tough for you guys, if the community college next semester has to raise tuition rates because of the impact, if they pass it on to the taxpayers, as I heard a gentleman ask the question earlier, those are things that are going to impact us big. So that's the kind of thing that I'm saying we need to prioritize and not be misguided, by saying we've got things great.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question, please. This one will go to Mr. Enriquez.
Okay. Looking at the state mandated meningitis vaccine recently enforced, are there other policies being considered that could adversely affect enrollment?
Other policies, not that I'm aware of, to be honest with you. To recognize the fact of the immunization programs and that sort of thing, is that perhaps what you're alluding to? Or?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Share with me what the others might be, as an example.
Well, at this point, they are looking at not just meningitis, but they're looking at increasing that and expanding it pretty soon so that all students have to get it. There's other things, but any other issues that could be, other than just vaccinations, but policies that will keep people from coming to school.
And I didn't know if there was a specific vaccination that you had in mind, but
No.
I guess first and foremost, in the interest of public health, to the extent that we do have certain requirements, then yes, I would say that that would be the kind of thing that we want to support, because I don't think any of us want to be adversely exposed to any kind of a virus or an illness that could impact us, and I think sensitivity to the public health would be first and foremost.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
I was an assistant dean when the meningitis requirement was first put into place. And it was really interesting because I worked at Southwestern University, which is right outside of Austin. And students would come from all over, came on a bus. I had this one student who came on a bus who had all his bags, and then we told him, oh, you don't have your vaccines, you can't stay on campus. And he didn't know where to go, and he's just like, I didn't know I had to get this vaccine. I don't have a way back to, he was actually from El Paso. I don't have a way back to El Paso. So I think that when we think about mandating certain things like a meningitis vaccine, we have to think about how are we going to make sure all students know, because the last thing we need is for students not to go to school. There's a really good study that comes out of the Pew Hispanic Research Center that talks about how Latino students are able to get into college but have a really difficulty getting out of college. And so we need to try to find a way to make sure that they can be successful once they get in. And if we're going to have mandated requirements like the meningitis vaccine, then we need to educate. We need to get on the phone. So the next year what we learned at Southwestern was not everybody knows about these requirements. So we called every single student and we talked to their parents, we talked to the student, and then we made sure that they were going to understood the mandated requirements. So whatever mandated requirement we do talk about in the Texas legislature, there has to be an implementation program that goes along with the mandate. Because you can't just say, we require you to do something, but we're not going to educate you about it, and we're going to limit your possibility of getting an education.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Next question for Ms. Gonzalez.
According to Forbes magazine, El Paso was one of the top job growth cities this past year. While this is a step in the right direction, how do you plan on creating salaried jobs for those that are graduating with degrees and skills that far exceed proficiencies needed to fill hourly paid jobs?
When I talk about the economy, you have to talk about education. And in upcoming years, 8 to 10 million new jobs are technology-based. So we can talk about the definite possibility of economic development in the far east El Paso new growth areas, but we have to simultaneously have a serious discussion about education. So if 8 to 10 million jobs are in technology, we need to make sure that we're funding math and science programs at K through 12 level. We need to make sure that we're not having cuts to higher education. We need to promote graduate and doctoral programs across the state. And I think that's the first step in making sure that we provide salary jobs is providing a strong education. Because without that, we can create jobs. But if we're not creating an educational opportunity, then what's the point of having jobs if we don't have people who have the background or the skills needed to have those jobs?
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Enriquez.
Over the last 25 years, I've worked in this community and have represented over 750 small businesses here in El Paso. What I'll share with you is that employers are constantly asking me, is the educational output what we need for the kinds of jobs that young people desire? I talked a little bit earlier specifically about the cuts that took place on that loan repayment program. That loan repayment program was for math and science teachers. That's what I said earlier. When you eliminate that, then all of a sudden you're not giving a priority to that, or you're not giving that attention. But I think that I've got the unique skills to promote not only education, but strong workforce development based on the service history that I've had in this community over the last 25 years.
Thank you. Next question, please. And this will be for Ms. Gonzalez.
With tuition and fees increasing yearly and at an all-time high, what do you intend on doing in an attempt at controlling education expenses to make college affordable and accessible?
Yeah, I think I'm mixed up, but go ahead, please.
So,
Yeah.
I've been fighting for tuition, for an affordable tuition, probably for the last 8 years. There was a night where I spent literally all night long at the Capitol just trying to fight tuition deregulation, because tuition deregulation was kind of the start of this problem when we have affordable university access, right? So a few years ago when we deregulated tuition, we told university presidents, you can set the bill. You can tell how much it's going to cost to come to this university, and what we've seen is a 70% increase in tuition. So I think the first thing that I would do would be assess tuition deregulation. The next thing I would do is, we've also seen a trend in, as far as less money from the state going into our institutions of higher education. So making sure we no longer cut institutions of higher education so that the burden isn't put on the student or on the families or on the parents, that the state really lives up to its responsibility of educating our young people. And I think that the third would be definitely to make sure that we don't cut loans to low-income students, because that's what happened last legislative session, is we cut loans for the people who probably needed it the most. And going into the Capitol, I just really want to fight, and that's my history of fighting to making sure that the people who need access to education the most get the access.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Enriquez, please.
As far as making tuition affordable, I think I said earlier, and this is another article that I'd like to share with you all at the table if you'll please visit. I resent and don't appreciate very much, but we all know the education gap is growing between rich and poor. And as I said before, it used to be that education was a great equalizer. But unfortunately, if you all don't have access to tuition or tuition assistance that is tuition that's affordable, or tuition assistance programs that can help you guys get through school, we're not going to have that opportunity. I also have to recognize and be pragmatic about the fact that the Republican Party dictates the policy in the state of Texas right now. As a Democratic state representative, what I would hope to do is to share all of these facts and make sure that we illustrate it to them. Hey, you've got to be responsible about considering all communities and not just Republican constituencies. You've got to take into consideration the people from El Paso that may be Democratic, that may be middle to lower class. That is what I would do, and hope that we could gain some sensitivity from them. Is that a plan?
No, thank you, sir. Well, let's hold the applause, please, until it's over. But thank you so much, sir. Next question. Do we have any more questions? Okay, at this time, I would like to open the floor to our audience, our students. This is the tuition, the college. This is a big issue in the state right now. So if any of you have questions about this and you'd like to ask our representative candidates, please feel free to do so right now. We have a microphone that's ready to be passed around, so please feel free and any questions at all? I believe our panelists do have a couple more questions, but you guys can ask anything. Hey, I'd ask about legalizing drugs, man. Hey. Anyone? Okay, our panelists do have a few more questions if y'all are, but if you have anything follow up, please let me know.
All right. I am a government professor, So this is something I do see in my classroom, and that is young voters, they feel at times disenfranchised for a variety of reasons, or they're turned off. And my question is, with the lack of participation of the younger voters in the county, how will you appeal and gain the support and trust of this demographic?
Okay, Mr. Enriquez, please go first.
Sure. I want to let you guys know that I'm very much youthful. I'm not ashamed to let you guys know that I'll be 50 in July. But I want you to know that if you look at some of the material that I've got over there, the last 25 years I've coached kids from 4 to 24. Young people like you guys give me a lot of energy. I want you to know I've got a mutual respect for what you guys bring to the table in terms of energy and excitement. I remember when I was your age. I came on school board when I was 25 years of age, not much older than some of you guys maybe. But I want you to know that there's a life ahead of you guys that is going to give some great and wonderful things for you. I hope to offer to you guys just a little bit of real world experience that will let you know, hey, I'm going to pave the way for you guys. I'm wanting to know, what are we willing to do for our young people? And that's a commitment that I make to you, what we're willing to do for our young people. As I told you, I've graduated 1 from college. I got 2 more in college right now, 1 getting dual credit today. And I very much am energized by young people. Respectful of your time, I hope you guys will get by and get my contact information, email address, and cell phone number, and I would look forward to a one-on-one visit with each of you.
Ms. Gonzalez, thank you.
I think it's a really important question. As a young person myself, I'm 28 years old. And one of the reasons that I am running is to be a role model to my generation, to our community. Millennials, that's what we are, millennials. Millennials are known for the generation changing the world. Time magazine had a cover that talked about how it was young people in Egypt who really led the revolution. And I think really reminding young people that that's our legacy, to be the generation that's going to make a difference. That's why, Tom's markets to us, because they know we'll buy their shoes because it's a larger purpose than buying shoes. The money actually goes to help young kids who don't have shoes, right? And that is what we're known for. And so that what I can do as someone who's running for office is to remind people, yes, it's really great that that's our legacy, but how do we actually live that? And one of the ways of living that is by voting. Because if we were just to increase our voter participation by 4%, we can determine the election. We can determine the type of leadership we want for our community, the future that we would like to see, the type of person that we want to represent us. And so I think that the main thing that I can do is 1, be a role model, and 2, just remind us how much power we do have. Just a 4% increase can really change an election, and we can do that. And that's how I think that would be a really great way to make sure that we engage young people in trying to get out the vote.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question from our panelists, and Ms. Gonzalez, please answer this question.
Yes, here's a question that what is the first piece of legislation that you will author if elected?
Wow, well I'm a policy buff, as I mentioned. Last legislative session I wasn't working at the Capitol, but have you seen the giant Post-its? I literally had giant Post-its all across my bedroom tracking bills because that's how much I love policy on my free time. But for my first bill, while I don't probably want to do 100 of them at the same time, I think I would probably, right now El Paso County doesn't allow dairy farms. And this might seem a little interesting, but then we can't have dairy farms here. I grew up raising dairy heifers, like female cows, as part of I grew up on a farm. And when we just stopped allowing dairy farms, we lost a huge industry down there in the valley. And so I think one of the things I would do is to allow dairy farms to come back into El Paso County, which would create a new industry in the county of about $20 million, which if you've been down to Tornillo, Fabens, Clint, Sanelli, we need that industry. And I would just bring back cows, and it seems simple, but it has a huge impact.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Enriquez.
I have spent the last 7 months on this campaign going door to door and visiting you at your homes. I'll continue to do that till Election Day. But what I'm going to tell you is my first bill will probably be, by virtue of my having served on school board, will be education related. And I would probably say education funding related. Do you know that in the Dallas Independent School District, that school district is funded $10,000 for a student? That's their funding that they receive. Do you know that the Socorro Independent School District receives $4,800? Less than half. To me, you've got to know that there's a lot more need out here than there is in Dallas. Dallas has a responsibility and representatives that can look out for them, but I will look out for our community. Because of my service on school board, I know all too well the impact of short funding. Because of a sister that was a third grade teacher, and I knew the high stakes testing that was going on and the results that really have nothing to do with educational knowledge or output, then most definitely you better believe that it's going to involve education funding. But the reason I tell you about knocking on doors is I have done a needs assessment in this community and will continue to do that. And I've told people, I'm not going to promise you anything. What I am going to do is I would like to get a list of all those topics that need attention, and certainly I would like the opportunity to follow them through. So I would think that as much as I would like to sponsor a bill, I would likewise pool all the input that I'm getting from the community as I visit with people, and if there is something that's of greater priority, you better believe I'm going to represent this community with a bill that they desire.
Thank you very much. At this time, does our audience have any questions that would like to ask our candidates? No questions? Okay. I believe that, would you like to ask a question?
What committee assignments would you pursue?
Okay. This is our...
What committee assignments would you pursue and why?
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Appropriations, so that we could get education funding equalized here in El Paso.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for the applause.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Well, of course, I would love to be in appropriations. Every state legislator puts appropriations, and the reality of that happening is slim to none with a freshman legislator. But you have to rank them when you go in. And so my first would be obviously appropriations. Second would be higher education. Third would be county affairs. And fourth, because I'm an overachiever, I would pick health and human services, because we really need to make sure we have safe and healthy families.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to allow our candidates 2 minutes each to add any closing remarks that they might have. So it will begin with Mr. Enriquez, please.
I think we have to ask ourselves today, what are we willing to do for young people? That's what I ask myself all the time. That's what I've done as a father the last 25 years. So you can count on that for me. Today's economy, young people, more education is needed now more than ever. Who's going to demand more? Who's going to bring families together because of being rooted and dedicated to this community over the past 25 years? First off, we need to value our teachers. Classroom sizes are swelling now because of the fact that funding was decreased. We need to increase funding. We need to get off the high-stakes testing that's going on that really doesn't do what we need to do. We need to create opportunities for jobs in El Paso. That should be job number one. And in talking to people, we don't want the minimum wage jobs anymore. We want high-paying jobs where you all can eventually begin your families and do what I've done over the last 25 years to raise children, have a business, give back to this community, participate. For the last 14 years, I've participated in non-elected community service to this community the last 14 years. That's what you do when you've enjoyed a successful career. And when I say success, I'm not talking money. It's very gratifying for someone like me to see so many young people and see the dreams in your eyes and know that if I can have just a little something to do to help you guys get there, you can count on it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gonzalez.
I just want to say thank you to y'all for being here. The election was supposed to be in March. Now the election is May 29th. There was a huge debate about where the lines would be as far as who gets a vote and who gets a vote where. Why was that debate so important and such a strong battle? Because everyone across the state realizes that this election is probably one of the most critical elections that we'll see in the next decade. It's an open seat, the 75th. And we need to make sure we have someone who understands Austin, understands the needs of our community, and will fight to get things done. Because if not, our community will be ignored. There's 150 legislators, and we need to make sure we send someone who can build coalitions, who understands the process, who is passionate about policy and about getting things done and about representing our home. Because if not, we really will be ignored. I have the experience. I have the background in policy, the background in education, the passion for our home and our community. As the oldest of 11, I work to be a role model, a leader of integrity. I appreciate the opportunity, and at Paso Community College, I cannot tell you how important this election is, because 54% of young people start at a community college right now. And community colleges were the ones that were hit the most last legislative session. We can make a choice to either let it continue or to stop it. And this is our opportunity to define our future. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you very much. At this time, would you please give our candidates a big round of applause for their work and the fact that they're running for this position. Thank you.